Yes to people. So today I'm going to be going through a topic that I vaguely discussed in my last problematic video, but I'm going to go a little more into detail in that specific part of that topic today. Now the topic we're going to be talking about is the process that a lot of these developers are currently in trying to phase out physical media. As you know, there's a lot of drama at the moment with particular companies. I want to go a little more into detail with it and how I feel about everything. I want to talk about the prices of video games first and that particular problem, because it's getting ridiculous. And if you've seen the multiple videos that a lot of these creators make, Penguins, Mudaha, all that stuff, they're clearly saying and showing that they've been to these showcases of the Switch 2 and they've seen the prices of the games, and it's unacceptable.
A worthless, steaming pile of cow dung.
It's also unacceptable with the shit that they're pumping out nowadays. We can get onto that a bit later, but I want to talk about one particular game and compare it with how it used to be. Mario Kart World, the new Switch game that's going to release Switch 2, costs $80 for the digital version, and it costs $90 for the physical version. Now let's take a little trip back in our time machine to 1996. I was born in 2001, so 1996 was a little bit ahead of my time, and I was a child a few years after that, so I wasn't really part of that time. But if you were an adult or a child asking your parents for the game in 1996, this is how much it would cost you. The game I'm talking about is Super Mario 64, a game released on the N64, which was the current console at that time. I also want to clarify before I tell you the price of it, I want to read a little bit of an article that I found that sort of justifies the price point for that time as well. Now I want to give full credit to the article, and the person that published the article is from a site called Expert Beacon, and it was written by a man named James Dawn on May 14th, 2024. As a long-life Nintendo fan, I still vividly remember picking up my copy of Super Mario 64 on launch day back in September 1996. This groundbreaking 3D platformer retailed for $59.99. The standard $10 premium for the Nintendo Command was for marquee titles launching on the new Nintendo 64. Adjusted for inflation, that $59.99 price point would equate to $109 in 2025 money. So while definitely not cheap, Super Mario 64 offered a legitimate value proposition as one of the N64's must-have killer apps. Let's dive deeper into the history and the method behind Mario 64's revolutionary yet pricey launch. Nintendo has enjoyed strong pricing power in the console gaming space since revitalizing the industry with the NES back in 1985. Back then, the premium NES releases like Super Mario Bros. And The Legend of Zelda retailed for $49.99. This set a baseline expectation of quality and value at a time when console gaming was still recovering. Fast forward to 1996, and Nintendo had firmly re-established its dominance with the SNES console. Iconic SNES releases like Super Mario World, F-Zero, and Star Fox sold for around $59.99 as the standard new price for flagship Nintendo releases. So when Nintendo announced its new Ultra 64, later the Nintendo 64 console, for September 29th, 1996, the $59.99 pricing for Super Mario 64 made perfect sense. Nintendo was transitioning in its most acclaimed franchise into 3D for consumers. This signaled the Mario 64 would be a showcase title worth paying up for. Beyond Mario's inherent allure, the market landscape also facilitated Nintendo pricing Super Mario 64 at a premium. The Nintendo 64 other chief rivals, Sony PlayStation and Sega Saturn, launched in 1995 for $299 and $399 respectively, with rumors swirling that Nintendo's new console would be significantly more advanced thanks to its 64-bit architecture. Speculation mounted that it could cost on launch for $350 or more. Instead, Nintendo introduced the revolutionary N64 for a scant $199, directly in line with Sony's recent PlayStation price cut. Even today, I consider Mario 64 to be a timeless masterpiece. No Nintendo console has ever had the software that showcased new technical capabilities as brilliantly right out of the gate. Between the nostalgia and the cherished memories of wonder it instilled, I'd argue that the quality and magic justified its premium. In the end, Super Mario 64 sold over 11 million copies globally, cementing its place in Nintendo 64's killer app alongside GoldenEye's 007 and The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Mario 64 was a must-have game that justified the new console purchase and made systems hard to find on that holiday season. Nintendo software attach rates have always trunched the competition. People buy Nintendo consoles explicitly for tentpole Nintendo exclusives by sticking to the established $59.99 pricing for the Super Mario Nintendo launch. Nintendo reinforced that its iconic franchise command a premium. Ultimately, Super Mario Nintendo 64 represented a watershed moment for both Nintendo and 3D games. By maintaining its premium software pricing standards at launch, Nintendo underscored that Mario's impeccable pedigree warranted the investment, and for millions of dazzled gamers, Super Mario 64 proved well worth the $59.99. Now, obviously from that article, we can pick apart a lot of stuff, but the main thing I would think of is that it doesn't warrant the price, considering it's not going to be a generational change. What it's going to be is it's going to feel familiar to a lot of the other games because there's not really much you can do with such a cartoon style. Back then, the 64-bit was a massive change because it was 3D. Now it's not going to change to 4D, is it? It's going to remain the same style of game, probably around the same graphical enhancement. I would argue that there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that justifies the extortionate rate they're setting their games at. And it just falls into the exact same principle that I set into my last problematic video, where it's just going to encourage kids to spend way too much of their parents' money. Now, I know it doesn't seem like too much considering the current standard price is $70 a game, a little bit less in pounds, but in my opinion that's still too much. The games have gone up to $80 for digital and $90 for physical, which is a $10 and $20 hike. It's so much more money. It adds up. It really does. If you continue to buy games that are that price, it will add up, considering you add 20 plus 20 plus 20 plus 20 onto the already exorbitant amount you're already paying. It's so much more money, and it's not justified with how mediocre some of the games are that come out these days. There will be no generational shift because unfortunately we're stuck in a time at the moment where games aren't really advancing much. We've sort of hit a peak of graphical enhancement. Games already look stupidly real. If you look at that game, I forgot the name of it, but you look through like a GoPro, it looks like real life. You can't get any more realistic than real life. So when you consider a cartoonish game, there really is no room for improvement. The only thing that you can improve is technical bugs and the smoothness of the game, but even then that doesn't warrant a $10 and $20 up price in cost. So when you add in the point of the original point of the video, where companies are trying to phase out physical media, it's even more of an insult to charge that much, and then for a lot of these companies to stand on the fact that you don't even own your games. You are currently renting a license that's on a time limit. You don't own what you buy anymore, and to me that should be illegal. There's a strong saying, if buying isn't owning, then piracy isn't stealing, and I stand by that because it's fraud, and it's so much considered fraud that Ubisoft currently has a lawsuit against them because of their fraudery. So it's now at the point where even if you own your physical games, even if you own your disc, it basically, after a certain time, when that time limit runs out and they say that you don't own it anymore, it becomes bricked and it's a doorstop. On an article from a site called TechSpot, in response to Ubisoft's decision, a petition urged the Canadian government to introduce protections for online games. The petitions are calling for legislation that would require game companies to remove server dependencies and override end-user license agreements. The Stop Killing Games initiative is directing similar demands at multiple governments. As digital purchases and live service games become more prevalent, the issue remains far from resolved. Ubisoft, while promoting its subscription service, has previously suggested that consumers should get used to not owning their games, and I quote, "This is not acceptable for a game company to state that you should get used to not owning your game. It's an insult to every single person who collects physical media, has collected physical media, and collected physical media throughout the years. It's such a slap in the face and an insult, and I know that some other companies don't agree with this." I'm not going to go too much into it, but to cut it short, EA has currently allowed the community to keep a game alive, allowing people to mod it to keep the online servers going, and they've actually allowed this, showing that not every company is as greedy as this. A company as shit as EA. Like we said, we've got to give credit where credit's due. Not every company is as greedy as this. And this is where the whole point fits into the video. This is where I've been concluding to. Companies don't want you to own your games physically because they don't want you to own your games at all. They want you to rent them. And if you have it physically, it's just another argument that you can give of that you own your game. They've now actually had to put on specific boxes that you don't own your game anymore. It's so absurd to me. Guys, if you enjoyed this type of content, please let me know down in the comments below. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed, really helps me out. And please hit the subscribe button. It really helps me reach out to wider audiences and helps me grow. Peace.